Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to the video number 13 of the series of tutorial on how to build a WordPress plugin from scratch. In this tutorial, we're gonna spend just a few minutes on cleaning up a little bit the structure that we did the last time. And my main focus on today's tutorial is to consider the visual depth of your PHP script. It's something that sometimes we never consider, sometimes we skip and we don't want to bother with the visual depth, but it's always better to take a look at your script, what you coded a couple of days after, and trying to optimize it to remove extra stuff that you don't actually need it. So let's take a look on how to do it. First, one of you asked, what is the benefit of using the composer autoload instead of just using the require ones? Because require ones, like other than visually the difference between having use and require ones, we still have to write which file we want to require. So let me show you one of the many advantages of using autoload. What we're doing here, we're having a registration hook that calls a methods, that calls a class, and then a static method of that class. And then we include that class with the use autoload instead of require one. Because we're using the autoload, what we can do, we can completely remove the use and just call directly the class from within the autoload directory itself. So there you go. We removed the necessity of having to specify the use. So we basically removed the necessity of writing a require or include ones. We call directly the class. And of course, if we save, we go back in our plugin, we deactivate, reactivate, everything works. We don't have any PHP errors. So that's pretty good. That's the first thing that I like to do, is like deleting code that it's kind of not useful, especially if I'm calling a static method. I don't need to do anything. And also here, let's follow the logic of WordPress, the way that WordPress handles these hooks related to a function, and usually is the function followed by attached the hook that reference that function. So this is way cleaner already. Another question that you asked, and it's a super legit question, is that we are defining all these constants, and what if there's another plugin that uses a plugin related constants, and would interfere this with our plugin? Yes, it could. So instead of having the issue or like dealing with a unique name of the constants, all this information that we need to access pretty much in every classes or in the majority of our classes, why don't we create a base controller that defines those public methods or like public variables, and then we extend that base controller to let other classes to use those public variables. So let me show you what I want to do. First, I like to create a new file inside the Inc base called base controller. So base controller.php. Then let's copy the usual starter thing from every class. So open the PHP, define the package, and then include the namespace of the location of my controller. In my case, it's inside the Inc base folder. Then let's create a class called base controller, exactly like the file. And this class, the only thing that it does, it defines publicly accessible variables and then initialize those variables in the construct to set them up properly for our plugin. So let's define, for example, first the public $plugin path. That is one of the things that we're using in the pages admin.php to include the templates admin. So plugin path, it's here, and it's a constant defined in the base file, but we don't want to do that. So I want to use this plugin path that I'm going to define now. So let's create the public function construct. And in the construct, no need to pass any parameters. The construct, the only thing that it does, initialize during the initialization of the class, fills up that plugin path variable with the actual plugin directory path, like we're doing in the constant. But in order to do it here, we need to say $this plugin path, it's equal to plugin underscore directory path. And here we need to define the directory name. The problem here is that we cannot use the file anymore because we're not in the right location. We are inside Inc base, so we are indented 2 levels indented from the base directory. In order to tap the base directory, we need to use just simple PHP. So we specify the directory name method to reference this file, so double underscore file double underscore, but then as a second parameter we need to specify the level of the indentation of our file. So in our case it's 2, because we're inside 2 folders of distance, 2 parents from the main directory parent, that it's AliCAD plugin. So now we have this plugin path. If we save it, we go back in our plugin, we refresh, no PHP errors, it's totally fine. But this base controller is not initialized, is not included in our init.php, and we don't have to include it. We're not gonna put it here because this base controller, it's only necessary to be extended by other classes. So, as I said, the admin.php right now is using the plugin path. So if we remove this plugin path, and we leave just the required ones and we try to go into AliCAD, we're gonna have a PHP error because the templates admin.php doesn't exist. We're not pointing the right file. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna simply say, hey, use the base controller. But in order to use the base controller, I need to reference the base controller inside the inc base controller location. But I'm already inside inc pages. So how do I reference with use a class that it's in a completely different directory? It is not following, like it's not in a subdirectory on my current directory. I can use the / at the beginning to say start looking from this file, start looking for this file from the base directory, from the base root of my plugin. So /inc, so it starts from the AliCAD plugin, so it looks for the inc, and then it goes to base, and then say use base controller. Awesome. Now the only thing to do here is extends the base controller. And after extending the base controller, first, let's save it. Let's refresh here. Let's see if we have other PHP error or no PHP. The only one is require once templates. So now, because we're extending the base controller, that by default, every time it gets initialized, triggers the construct and sets this plugin path variable with the proper path of our plugin, let's use that variable directly in here. So require once, $is plugin path concatenate to templates admin.php. Let's refresh. Boom! The AliCAD plugin template that we had before, exactly the same. Did you see what I did here? Like, it's so easy and so simple. Because we're defining the base controller, this publicly accessible variable called plugin path, and I'm extending the base controller in the admin, automatically the admin will have access to this plugin path without redefining the construct, because every time we extend this class, it gets initialized. So we have those variables set up for us without the necessity of initializing anything else. So with the same logic now, we can completely and safely remove these things and set them up all in the base controller. So let me paste it there. Now I need to define the plugin URL variable, and also here is plugin directory URL. And then with the same logic, let's say just plugin, and here plugin base name method. Okay. Now, of course, if I save and I go back in my plugin, I'm gonna have a lot of PHP errors because I completely removed the constant plugin. So the thing that we have to do, we have to replace these constants with the public variables that we defined before. So let's copy this stuff, use, and then let's say in deactivate, we don't have anything to do. Deactivate, nothing to do. In queue, here we're using the plugin URL, a constant that doesn't exist anymore. So let's use the base controller. Let's extend the base controller, and let's say, hey, use this plugin URL. Let's check in our front end. Hey, look at that. Just one error because we solved the other two. Awesome. So let's fix the last thing, that is the settings links. Now here, what we were doing, we had like a protected plugin, initializing the construct and storing the plugin constants inside this protected plugin. We don't need to do this anymore. Just simply delete this stuff. We don't need them. Paste the inc base controller and extends it again, base controller. And now we can reference safely the this plugin. Save it. Let's go back here. Let's refresh. We don't have any more the PHP error, but as you notice here, we don't have either the settings link that we're supposed to have, but hey, everything else works. If we access the network and we zoom it a little bit, we have our custom CSS, we have our custom JavaScript, everything is loading properly except for that settings thing. The problem is that, and I don't know if you guys can suggest a solution, I couldn't find a solution, but I have a solution how to do it. The problem is that this plugin is not actually pointing to the proper location. So $this plugin, let's say it is, let's echo and see what's going on. If we refresh and we echo it, let me inspect this element, let me delete this, look at that. The actual location is AliCat plugin/inc. We don't want that. We want the default location of the default file. So let's go back here and let's update it until we have the proper thing, the proper location of our file. Because as you may know from the previous videos, the plugin base name should be composed by the name of the directory and the name of the base file that has the same name of the directory. So in order to do that, we need to go back another level, so 3 levels, and then concatenate this with the string of the actual name. And this is kind of crappy, I know, AliCat plugin.php, but this is the only solution that I found. I don't know how to actually reference this file from 3 times indented child directory. I'm sorry, it's kind of super weird, I know. But yeah, let's do this. Let's go back in the backend, let's refresh, and now we have the proper directory location, or our plugin name base directory, and then the settings work. So if we click here, we go to the proper page, AliCat plugin. That's perfect. I know this is not the best thing, but if you can find a better solution, just let me know. Oh, by the way, remember to declare the variables that we're gonna use in our class. So always declare the type of variable that then we're gonna fill in the construct. But anyway, now we can delete this and everything works. So as you notice, what we did in our base structure here, we removed a lot the visual depth. Look our file, how it's super clean and super easy to read. We have just few things to initialize our class. Everything works perfectly and properly. We have way less visual depth than we had before. We removed and deleted extra code that we don't actually need, and we relegated the basic declaration of our plugin's information, the path URL, the plugin base directory, base name, to a base controller that is contained with itself. So this base controller will not interfere with other plugins if they use the same type of variable names or same constants. And every time we need to access one of these things, the only thing that we have to do is just reference with the use composer outload, something that we wouldn't be able to use with the required ones. It would be like super weird, super awful to look, and then extend that class. So we can tap those variables without reinitializing the construct and redefining those variables. So that's pretty great. And as I said, the base controller, because we don't have to do anything with the base controller other than extending it, we don't need to add it to the services list. But yeah, it's pretty much it for today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. And if you want, you can spend a couple of minutes on the support me page of my website, where you can find all different ways and methods to support me, support my channel, and help me to do better videos and better tutorials for you. Thank you again, guys, and until the next lesson, as usual, happy coding!